podcast for projectfandom.com. I'm your host, Nina, and I am back this week to discuss Pachinko. I'm going to be talking about episode 4, chapter 4, with my good friend, Julie. Julie has returned to discuss with me.
Hi.
Yay. So in case you don't know, I think I mentioned this on the podcast last week. I don't remember if I did or not. But you guys know the Google Doc that has the schedule for our podcast. It lists, there's one tab for recording date, so it tells you when we're recording a show, and then there's another tab for publication date, like when that podcast is actually going to go up, either on Patreon or for free. And with this show, because I asked Julie to join me and she's a guest and I'm going to go around her schedule, what is in there may not always be correct. Like, I typically won't know when we're going to talk about the next episode until we meet to talk about the last episode. So just know that I think for the most part, it feels like we can do weekly, but it's going to be whenever we can get together to do it. So we are recording this on Sunday, April 17th, and it will go up probably within a day or two. And if you want to get feedback in for us to read on the podcast, the feedback post is up on Patreon, but it is accessible. It's not behind a paywall. So if you have been watching along and you want to join the discussion with us, you can get your feedback in. And again, when I know that we're going to record, that's when I update the schedule. So you can check the recording date to know when you have to get that feedback in. All right. Julie, ma'am, chapter 4.
It was a doozy.
It really was.
Like, what would you subtitle it? Like, for me, it would probably be like colonialism.
like the title of this chapter 4?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I don't know. I have to think about that. That's a really good question. I honestly, this episode made me cry probably more than the first 3 combined.
Yeah, me too. I was like that, like,
yeah,
you know, just like hyperventilating. Yeah.
That's like there was a lot of like, I don't think like I would necessarily say, I feel like every week this podcast is gonna be like therapy. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm not close with my mom. Like, I think we are close. I think we talk more like friends than probably mother and daughter. Because I'm 47 and my mom is like 60. No, she is 62 or 3. She's one. She had me when she was 15. You guys do the math. Anyway, and we used to not get along, like when I was young, you know? And
of course,
I don't think she would be bothered by me saying this, but, you know, my mom was a spanker. You know, I grew up in a household where we got spanked. And I hated that, obviously. Like, who liked getting spanked? But I feel like we had a really, in retrospect, I think it's like a normal kind of dysfunctional teenage girl mom relationship, but maybe not. Maybe like if I tell the details, people will be like, that's a mess. But like in retrospect, it feels kind of normal, like the things we fought over, you know. But now things have changed, and it's much better, obviously. But watching this, it brought up so many like questions that I had for her that I don't know, like I'm ready to ask. Like, for instance, you were talking about the scene right before we went live. You were talking about the scene when Sunja's mom was making the rice for her wedding dinner. And I have in my notes right before that, I wanted to ask Julie, what do you think she was thinking when she was looking out that window when they were getting married? And I was like, and I can't remember how early this was in the episode, but I remember like, what is it you think she's thinking? And then like shortly after, it goes into the rice scene, right? Where she's asking the man for the rice so she could have a taste of home before she goes and all that. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's kind of what she was thinking. But what do you think she was thinking? Like, what was going through her head watching her daughter marry this stranger?
Yeah, I think that combined, like, it's happened so quickly, but I think that's pretty typical. That could be pretty typical for that time and for people in their class, right? I think it was probably like 75%, like, keep it together, do not yell at this person, like, do not like try to like fuck up this marriage,
right?
But like just so much love and like shame and embarrassment and wishing that it wasn't like this, like everything probably crashing at once. Like, of course, like, my kids are too young to have, to have been married, but I figure it would probably just all hit like in some moment, right? Of like all this hard work, years, like just suffering, and making do, and like maybe feeling pretty good about it that you've made it this far, and then like this person just dismisses everything right in front of you.
When the man was like, when the preacher was like, now I understand, like, you weren't raised in faith or something like that, and it cuts to the mother, and I just felt, oh my God, like, it felt like he was basically like, who raised you?
Yeah, like, obviously you weren't raised right is basically what
right. Like, it's probably looking like, no wonder there's no dad here. Like, I'm not surprised, Like, it was so heartbreaking, and so, like, and there was, like, things that he would say, like, in that scene that I wanted kind of her, like, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I kind of wanted her to, like, tell him to go fuck himself, when he talked about, like, the shame that he brought to her and her family's name and her family and all this stuff, but, oh, that was rough. That was rough. But, yeah, that type of scene, for me, anyway, with this episode, when you said, like, what would you subtitle it? A lot of it was just the relationship between me, thinking about the relationship between me and my mother and me and my daughter and mothers and daughters. And I think that's what kind of hit the most for me in this episode, her having to leave home. And
yeah, that you bring up like a great point. Like, I almost want to change my answer, because it was just like not just like the mother and daughter, like this. You like, like, obviously this society is like really uneven, right? Just like every society is.
Right, of course, yeah.
But like, it's, and maybe like every other society too, like, it's the women who keep it going.
Yes.
And, like, receive most of the shit and then have to turn that shit into dinner, right?
Exactly.
And you see that over and over and over again, like, in people in different classes throughout time. It's the same shit we're still living in.
Like, we were talking about this on another podcast. We were talking about, oddly enough, it was actually pertaining to Korea too. We were talking about the election of the recent presidential election in South Korea. And the person who won, I think it's the same as Yoon. Is super, I'm guessing, like, a comparison to like our politics is conservative. In fact, they were calling him like Trump, like,
wow,
their version of Trump. And I know folks who live there teaching Americans, and who are black, and they're afraid. They're like, the stuff that he's talking about, and I thought about what people said about, like, why we got Trump. Like, it was, like, a natural response to having Obama, and how, like, throughout history that these things happen kind of in cycles. Like, if you go, even though I don't really think that Obama was particularly progressive, right? But, like, if you go what they consider super, super left, like, it's just that pendulum is going to swing back violently the other way, hard to the super, super conservative or whatever. And so just thinking about, and so there was, like, all these examples throughout history in different countries in which this has happened in their politics and stuff. And it kind of just made me feel like, oh, so nothing ever changes, really. It's just like a cycle of shit.
Oh, that, like, detective story, like, time is a flat circle.
Right? Yeah, right. True Detective, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is something to be said. You're absolutely right. I thought about that and And again, we'll talk about this kind of chronologically. We're just kind of getting our overall thoughts out of the way. But I did think about that too in the scene with the Sunja and the young girls doing the laundry.
Oh yes.
That's just some hard shit.
That was the quiet part out loud.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's the perfect way to put that. And how her just saying like, that's just not how it's going to be for us. Mm-hmm. This is how it's going to be for us. And it just kind of like being, accepted that that's just the way it is. And the fact that Sunja couldn't even say anything. Did you notice that? Like, she didn't try to say, like, to try to make it better or to sugarcoat. It'd be like, no, like, all three of them knew that she was spitting some hard truths there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't, anything to, like, deny anything she said would have been a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, she probably feels very guilty that, like, kind of lucked out right in this way,
right? Because she knows, because they don't know, nobody knows she's pregnant, right? Like the other women working at the boarding house and all that stuff, like only her mother and the priest knew, right?
Yes, I think for sure if they would find out through like circumstantial evidence or whatever, they probably would have mentioned it right then and there.
Yeah. So you got Sunja sitting there knowing that her, like you said, like she like lucked out, and that her kind of lot in life and where her path is supposed to go as like a single unwed mother is supposed to, it wasn't supposed to go this way. Like she just got lucky. Right. Kaylee, please come get your dog. Sorry about this. He does, like, it's fine if he's in here, but like he comes like right up under the microphone to sit here and he pants. And I just feel like nobody wants to hear the whole time we're talking about like important stuff. So, so I'm not being mean. Otherwise, he would be welcome to stay. It's just he doesn't understand the panting in the mic. All right. Are you? So anything like overall, your overall thoughts in the episode? Do you want to get out of the way before we start talking about some of the details? Like, are you liking it?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I am in love with the show. I really loved like the direction and like the way they splice these like storylines together, because it's like one of those family epic sagas, right? Yes. So it's hard to like translate that into a visual medium. Yes. I would assume, right?
Yes.
And they're doing it really well.
Yes.
Like all the just weird like coincidences that show you like how these characters are related to each other. So good.
I was going to ask, because when this is like, you've read the book, I have not, and there were a couple of things like they were showing us something going on in 1989, right, to something going on in 1931. And like, for instance, okay, like in the very beginning, right, isn't there when oh god, I don't remember his do I have it written down? Sunja's new husband. What is
Ishak.
What is it?
Ishak,
that's right. We talked about that because it's like Isaac, right? Ishak, when he's at the tailor and Hansu is in there too, and it took me, I want to say, when that scene started, I did not realize that was Hansu at first. And then I was like, oh shit. But isn't this like at the same time where it's going back and forth to 1989, right? And we see Solomon putting on his nice suit, right?
Well, it doesn't splice it, but
okay.
It's later on.
It's later on. Okay.
The parallel is there. Like, that's intentional.
Okay. But then there's, like, stuff like when the woman is singing at the end. Mm-hmm. This is going on when down below, she's sick. Sunja's sick on the ship. And then also they were splicing this with Harmony not signing those papers, right? Mm-hmm. Like these acts of like rebellion, basically. Yes. Yeah. So in the book, is it presented to you like that? Like
I think
Does that make sense? Like, are those events like
remember.
close in narrative in the book, or is this an example of them, something you can do with a TV show?
I actually don't remember the singer, like specifically. But
okay.
it is basically how she does it, but she does it a lot more gracefully. And of course, with the book, like you can have like that dividing line, you know. And then, you know, of course, with book you could play with language.
Yeah.
It's, but it is like that. Like you sense like that ribbon that connects them all. Kind of like, and then sometimes you know it'll seem like a new scene or a new character is just coming out of the blue. But then you wait for it and
you get the connection.
Yeah.
Cool. I love this. I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm enjoying it, and I hesitated to say this on the last podcast because, I don't know, okay. So, I have a friend who is Korean who reviewed this in a professional capacity, but I don't think their review has gone up yet, and I don't think that they particularly liked it. So I think that the review was fair from what I got from talking to them, just like on a friendly personal level, like, you know, what did you think? Like, you know, but I didn't get a lot of details out of them, and I really just kind of want to wait and read the review. But one of the things that they said was that it was, that it feels westernized, like heavily westernized. And I don't know, like, I know what that means, but I don't know what that means in terms of like I don't know what examples. So I hesitated to bring that up yet last week and even just say, well, I have a friend who said this, because they're not here to explain themselves.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring it up now because it occurred to me, like, I don't know that I even asked you between last week and now, like, are you liking it? Like, and I was just curious, you know, if you heard someone, a Korean person say, I like it, but I feel like the story has been westernized a bit. Do you get what they mean by that? Like, do you see that, or do you agree?
I mean, there's like a Hollywood style of melodrama, right? Like, for example, that singer, there is no like historical equivalent. Like, there is,
gotcha.
I think she's loosely based on an actual, like the first Korean soprano was contemporary to you know, Sunja and everybody, and then she had to, like, you know, there's no, like, I don't know, opera school in Korea at the time, or maybe she was just taken as like one of those like yoink cultural, you know, what do they call it when they, like, you know, take the cultural linchpins out of a society as part of a colonial overtaking.
Right.
So she studied in Japan, performed, you know, against her will, like, to Japan, but then she came back, and like recorded something, and it became like the first like Korean pop song. I think that's what they say.
Wow.
Like, she sold like 100,000 records of her first recorded song, and I think they if you go to Wikipedia you can listen to it. But anyway, she, you know, so it's maybe loosely based on her, like, in terms of like dressing up the actress and stuff, but like that woman was not like part of the revolution from what I can tell.
Right. Okay. So I get that.
End, but it seemed like a romantic tragic end. And so a little bit like what do they call it when they do it in comic books, like retconning, right? Like, yeah,
creative like liberties or whatever.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I don't hold historical fiction to that high of a bar, you know. Otherwise, like, just read a history book, right? Like, it's just like,
yeah.
I like that kind of, it's not quite magical realism, but like, you know, you take some liberties to like have a point, right, to have a narrative,
right. And I was gonna say, like, I was trying to think of an example of when that doesn't work for me, and I'm sure there are some, and I couldn't think of one. The only thing I would say is that if it it bothers me. Like, I would think if it doesn't serve a point, or if it's kind of exploitive or counterintuitive to the point that you're trying to make. Like if you took this character and you created her, and she's supposed to loosely represent a real person, and you have her do this thing, and I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. Like, if her actions in some way were like, colonialism is good. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you do something like that is counterintuitive to the narrative, or if it's telling a lie, then I have a problem with it. But this, I got the point of this. I thought it was beautifully done. It was incredibly sad. And it took me a minute to realize that this was a Korean woman. Like, she wasn't arriving in Korea when Sunja met her, right?
Right.
She was leaving. I didn't realize that they were taking a Korean singer, and basically, like you said, they're taking a part of the culture for themselves.
Right, and I think it was meant to be a little bit nebulous. Like, I was confused, when they bumped into each other in the station, and then she dropped her
shawl.
Yeah, and I don't think at the time that you noticed any pattern on the shawl, right?
No, I thought it was just like a white shawl.
Yeah, and then when she's performing, you see that it had all these mugunghwa, like the Korean morning, like the national flower, like painted all over it. It's obviously hand painted, and then like you're like, oh shit, like this is a moment of significance, right?
Yes.
I think that that strikes me as something that purpose.
So, okay, let's talk about the details then in this episode. It begins with we're in Busan in 1931, and I have here in my notes the new suit flex. It is basically Isak is being he's at the tailor, having his suit like fitted or adjusted, and it turns out we later learned that it was his brother's suit, right?
Yeah.
His brother who passed away. And so he has no interest really in purchasing a new suit, something nicer and more expensive for show, as Hansu suggests. And what I have here is, at the end of it, Isaac was basically like, don't let my love for the Lord fool you. He was like, look, I'm going to need a suit for my wedding. And I'm going to need this. Like, and Hansu did not like that shit. Like that.
No, message received. I loved it.
Yes, I loved it. Because he was taking a lot of little swipes from Hansu in that conversation. And now he knows, right? Like, I know Hansu knows because he saw them together. Mm-hmm. But does Isak know who Hansu is? Or do you think he kind of figured it out because of the way he was treating him?
I rewatched the scene to see, and I think he had an educated guess. Mm-hmm. But there's no way in hell like Sunja would have like narked on him. No.
Yeah. And I kept waiting for that like to come out too, because the mom doesn't know. Right. She doesn't know who the dad is. And so when they have that moment where they're both there like on the pier, I was like, oh, is this
that was awkward.
Yeah. I was like, is this where it's gonna come out? But it didn't. I really like this mirror shot in this scene too, where they're talking to each other, but we see it through, like, it's not the traditional camera, like one over each shoulder, face to face shot. Like, we see this conversation happening through the mirror behind them. The camera, like, the camera,
close to each other. There was so much tension, but also I'm like, are they gonna kiss? Like,
right?
Like,
me and Kaylee, we watch. Me and Kaylee, we spend a lot of time together. We watch a lot of TV together. We podcast together. And there's so many times me and Kaylee are watching shows, and something will happen, and we'll look at each other and be like, "Is it going to get gay? Is this getting gay? Is it gay?" And we're like, "Yes, it's gay." Or most times it's not. We just want it to be gay, and it's not.
Yeah. There There were vibes.
I was picking up some vibes. So this wedding, we talked about this a little bit before. This priest. Look, we talked about this before. I am a heathen. I don't know the difference between a priest, a rab. No, I do know the difference between a priest and a rabbi. But like priest, father, deacon, minister, I don't know. So this guy is a priest.
They don't strike me as. He didn't strike. Did he have like that little like white notch on his? He struck me as a minister.
Minister. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not trying to be funny. Like I honestly don't know the difference in like, well, I know a priest is like in Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And these are, what's this, Christianity?
Yeah. Yeah. They're Protestant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this wedding, first she has to get lectured and be told what a naughty, naughty girl she's been. I don't think he once asked who did this. Bring him in here so I can lecture him too.
No, that's not. Men are men. Men.
Like, do you notice there was no mention of the tarnishment to the father's family name?
Of course not, because she's a witch.
I was like, what the hell?
Somebody.
And again, you know, I'm not Korean, never been to Korea. Watching this, feeling like, yeah, I get it though. I get it. This is some patriarchy bullshit.
Yes, it's very familiar.
Yes, this is oddly, sadly familiar. But yeah, after he asks if she thinks that, you know, that she can accept the God into her life and live this new, clean, pure life, he marries them, and her mother watches. And I wondered too, like, what she was thinking, like, what she must, like, was she imagining, like, how the father would feel? Or, like, would this have happened if he was still alive? Like, what, I don't know. This whole thing was just so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking.
And I think even in the best of circumstances, like in Korea, when a woman gets married to a man, it's never 100% happy. And it's probably majority sad, because you are expected, I mean, you leave home and it's pretty typical that you would never see your family again because you are part of like the
a new family. Right.
Yeah. And so it's just loss, right?
Yeah.
Over and over, for the mother of the bride. It's just
like that. I'm gonna tell you, I spent a lot of time, again for me, because of what struck me was, again, mother-daughter relationships. I spent a lot of time in my feelings for her in this episode.
Oh, I did. Oh,
you know, because her husband dies, like, and we already knew, like, before that, right? Like her feeling like her blood was cursed and she lost 2 babies already. Then you have this, and then like what that must have been like raising her with that kind of maybe fear, you know, like I was just, me personally, I would probably have been so scared to let that child out of my sight, you know. And then the husband dies, and it's, you know, her life is just, she works. It's like, that's all she does. Like, I don't think they ever showed her mother doing anything other than working outside of these scenes. And so, and then for her daughter to leave, and when she broke down on that pier, that was like,
yeah. I was like, you know, when you first asked the question, I was like, I think if it was me, I would not allow myself to even think about what my, you know, husband would think or whatever, because I had to get through those 3 days or however long it took. And in order to do so, I had to like just basically dissociate, you know, and just get to the matter at hand. And then I would probably do the same, just like everything. I mean, I do this all the time, right? Like I like grit and bear things for like a big event, and then once it's over, that's when I feel all my feelings, right? That was a beautiful scene, and I really related to the mom. I think I would probably be the same, right? I'd be like, how can I help, you know, if my kids get married, right?
Right. And she definitely, she totally did that too, right? Like, I'm so happy you said that, because like you could see that there was, like we said, the pain, the loss, the shame, all this stuff on her face during the lecturing and the ceremony. But then after that, she knuckled down and got about the business of sending off her daughter in the best way that she could, you know?
And she really did a great job. Like, when she brought the rice in during their, like, marriage night dinner, and I noticed Sunja, like she had on a hanbok, but and it looked like linen or rainy, right? But it was a much finer gauge, and it was obviously new. And then if you look at the lighting, I just noticed this on a rewatch like 5 minutes before I talked to you. Like, her mother is also wearing linen, but it's much rougher, and I think they did the lighting on purpose to make it shadowy, so like you could see how rough it was.
You're gonna make me definitely go back and rewatch this before I watch the next episode. I'm so glad. Like I said, I didn't have time to do the rewatch, so I'm so glad that you did.
Oh yeah, and that it made me just sob in my kitchen. Like, because if it was not brand new and it was like borrowed or whatever, like it was obviously like just washed to its
yeah. I love the details and stuff like that.
And then you could see the collar was freshly stitched, like it was still dimpled where it was stitched.
Oh wow.
And just like, you know that her mom made that, right?
Yeah.
And it was so just
So let's talk about before I skipped this, and I really shouldn't have. When she goes to get the rice, she goes to the market and she wants like, I think she was asking for like 2 cups of white rice, right? Which he, if I remember correctly, the and this is someone she had like a good relationship with, like, you know, this merchant. So he wasn't trying to be, but he was just like, look, if they come around and want to know why I'm short, and when he says that, he meant the Japanese, right?
Yes. Well, I guess specifically he meant Hansu.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. I don't know, I hadn't even thought about that. For some reason I was thinking, like, because at one point in this episode there's a Japanese, like, I don't know if he's like police or like something that summons her, remember?
Oh, right.
Right. So for some reason, I was thinking that. Like, I keep thinking, like, Japanese police just walking in, just, you know, taking however much rice they want.
But I think they're all kind of work for Hansu.
Yeah, you're right. No, he's in charge of this market area, yeah.
Yeah, he is not a good person.
No, he's not. He's fucking terrible, and we will definitely talk about that in a second, because there's, but she asked for this rice, and at first he's like, I can't. And then she talks about how Sunja's got married and she's leaving, and how she just wants her to have this taste of home.
Yes.
And he goes, and not only does he gives her 3 cups.
Yes.
And this is just too, I'm a sucker for people being good to people.
Me too.
Right? It'll be it's just an act. Probably the same reason why if someone asks me if I'm okay when I'm not, that's like, I lose it. Like, if you catch me in a time where I'm really not okay and you ask me, you know, like most people, like, how you doing? You know, it's like they don't really want to know, and you're just like, oh, I'm all right, you know. But there are times when if somebody asks me at the right moment where I'm just not okay and I need to get that shit out, like that kind of care, it just touches me in a way I can't explain, and I lose it. That's how it was here. Just watching him be good to her.
Yep.
And understanding. Was just so beautiful. And then the preparation of the rice. So can we talk about this? Because I don't wash my rice, and I understand. I'm sure my Asian friends listening right now, like, you don't do what?
I mean, I personally feel like you don't have to, right?
I listen, look, you get in trouble. All I know is I was on Twitter, Asian Twitter, a couple weeks ago, and folks were getting dragged for not washing their rice.
Well, I mean, I don't believe in, like, you would poison yourself.
Right? Okay, like, you don't have to, in the sense, like, like, it's not, you're not going to get sick from not washing your rice.
Yeah. But it's definitely recommended.
Well,
But it's also like I grew up in California during a drought. Like also feels very wasteful.
no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just didn't know that that was like a thing. Like growing up, like we just didn't do that. Like, I mean, if my mom did, I was not paying attention. So for me, it was just, put the rice in the water. Let it cook.
I mean, it's all starch, right? That's basically what it is.
Yes. But now I'm watching like I watch a lot of YouTube channels of, there's a couple that I love. It's just, I probably shouldn't admit this, but it's just basically people living their lives in Korea. And there's like one woman, she gets up at like 5 a.m. and she makes like her husband's lunch. She makes like a little bento box for him.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. And I'm just like fascinated. Just like why she doesn't show her face. Like it's all just her hands and her kitchen stuff as she's going about making meals for him. And like when she makes kimchi, and I'm just like so fascinated with this, and watching her like when she washes the rice and she makes all this like beautiful stuff from scratch. And then there's another one who's more, I guess, younger. And this woman lives in a really nice house, and it seems kind of rural. But then there's one that I follow. She lives in a nice apartment in Busan, I think, and she's married. And just watching like the way they prepare food, I've learned a lot watching Korean cooking.
Cool.
And I am not preparing food right, is all I know. Because there are some things, and I will tell you one thing about Korean food. I was thinking it again this morning. The second girl, I think her name is Rua. And I was watching her make, she made steak pancakes. And she had this really thin cut of steak. Like super, super thin. Almost like it looked like, no, it didn't look, let me stop lying. I was about to say steakums, but no, because that's gross. This was like red beef steak. It didn't look like that paper stuff, but it was super, super thin. And she seasoned it, and then she coated it in eggs in this Korean pancake mix. And fried it, and then she had like this green onion, like chopped green onion salad mix, and she made like this sauce out of like a whole bunch of shit I never even heard of, but I only hear about it when I'm watching Korean cooking shows. So clearly I need to invest in this stuff. But it's just like all kinds of like oils and anchovy oil and fish this and this, that, and the other. And she like made this really great sauce and like tossed the green onion in it and then served it in the middle of this. And Korean cooking always makes me wish I liked egg yolk. Because there's a lot of egg yolk in Korean cooking, and I hate egg yolk. Anyway, I don't even know how we got on this. Okay, yes, I know how we got on this.
Do you eat scrambled egg? You don't eat scrambled egg?
No, I eat scrambled egg whites.
Okay. You could do it with egg white.
I guess. Can you? Will it be the same, though?
I mean, it'll look white as fuck. But it's just a binder.
Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's just, I don't know. I swear Korean, and then like Korean food makes like, honestly, yolk, like even the look of it makes me like nauseous. But like when I see it in Korean food, it doesn't look bad. Like I'm like, I think I might be able to eat that, but I know I can't. I really don't like the taste of it. But there's so much egg yolk in Korean food, and it always just looks so good. But anyway, what I brought that up to say was, watching her prepare the rice, like the whole, it didn't look like an act of labor. It looked like an act of love. Like this was somebody preparing a meal that meant something. Yeah. And you could see that with her preparing the rice. I just love that they took the time to show that.
Yeah, one cool little, like, I don't know, cultural tidbit is when you'll notice when she washes the rice, she saves the water.
Yes.
And what I would bet dollars to donuts she did with that water is like that water is really good for your hair and skin.
Yes. I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, she had, she washed Sunja's hair and her face and stuff with that.
I was going to say, a lot of what I see on that channel, too, is when they make rice and they save the rice water. And it's for that exact reason. They're like, there's so many great things you can do with rice water, and one of them is using it on your hair. So
makes it really shiny.
So they have the wedding dinner, which, again, Korean meals with all the little side dishes on the And then we talked about the scene with Sunja doing laundry with the other two girls that work at the boarding house. And we find out they're orphans, right? Like both of their parents are dead. So they're like, we don't have, what's it called? Like a dowry? Is that what
Yes.
Yeah. So like, who's gonna, like, what do we have to offer? And, yeah. So she's just like, it's, you're one girl, I didn't catch their names. I might have and then written it down later. But one is kind of like caught up into the whole romance of marriage and all of this stuff, and like what, I guess, thinking about like what it would be like for her. And the other girl kind of like brings her back down to reality and says, that's not how it's going to be for us.
Yeah.
And then like, what is that like, I wonder, in terms of thinking that way and feeling like this is the path laid out before you, and like this is your only option, like one thing, but then also while being colonized, like it feels like you're under a okay, how I'm trying to think of how to say this. It's like when they're doing things like we just talked about a scene in which someone got married and there's a wedding dinner and there's all of this kind of beautiful, quote unquote, normal life stuff happening, but there's under the cloud of colonialism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, especially the kind of colonialism that they're under, where like they're actively encouraged to narc on each other.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And so you cannot trust anybody. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you're like, what? Those girls are like, what, triply marginalized? You know?
And that's what that's made it so sad.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
they, again, like, I'm sure the other side of it is like, it could be worse, right? Like, they're with a kind family.
Right.
You could totally be like, you know, basically an indentured servant of a very mean person.
Right.
Especially during these times.
Yeah.
And they're together. Which is
good. That's, and I will tell you, I found myself when she's saying goodbye and she hugs them.
Yeah.
And I know, like, in present day, because what are the, oh my God, this dog. Oh my God. Are you still there?
Yes.
He literally, like, it's hard to explain. It's like he tries to come between the mic and the computer to get in my lap. And like Kaylee tries to stop him because he's breathing directly into the mic. And she was successful the last few times, but this last time he literally just jumped over the mic and just landed in my lap. Like, and so here he is. I'm so sorry if you guys can hear my dog breathing. I'm going to try to move the mic again.
I couldn't hear him.
Really? Okay, good. Okay. So he's in my lap now. I'm a little bit further from the mic than I would like to be, but I'm trying to do this with him here. This dog doesn't even like me that much. I don't know why he acts like this.
Why is he acting like a cat?
He does. He acts like a cat a lot. And I don't have a lot of experience with cats, but I feel like this is what I've been told cats are like.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, I see that you are paying attention to something.
That's not me, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they do show you, there's like this, we see Sunja in the present day packing to go to Korea.
Yeah.
With, in the past, her mother packing for her to go live with her new husband. In present day, I forget her name. Oh God, I'm gonna go look it up. The girl who works at Shifley's with Solomon. He's such a dick to her.
Solomon is a little bit of a dick.
He really is. And I'm like, why? Like, I couldn't understand why in this scene he was just like, he's just like really like nasty to her. And to the point where at one point he said to her, so when did you start sleeping with, what's his name? Like, what are we doing? Why are you talking to her like this?
Like, since when were you a hoe? Yeah.
Right.
Her name is Naomi.
Naomi, thank you.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous, by the way.
Oh, yes.
But I love when she flips it, when she basically tells him, this company ain't all that. This is where the people nobody want to work with goes to work.
Yep.
And I'm here because I can rise here.
Yeah, compared to y'all losers.
Right? Y'all just gonna be fighting each other over and over again. I'm gonna be fine. And then also he points out in this conversation that she comes from a good family anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
So she was gonna be fine regardless.
Yeah.
So this is what I have in my notes. You tell me if you know what scene this is. Hansu tells fuckboy lies. The nerve of him.
Oh, yeah.
The nerve of him calling her in there. Now, this is what I wanted to say to you, because when I said we're going to talk about this, because I try to, like, with very few exceptions for certain things, you know, racism, homophobia, and all that, I try to, like, see the sides, right? Like, to see where he might be coming from. And where I felt where he was, where I felt like she could have been swayed a little bit, and I felt like he was being honest when he talked about what life is probably going to be like for her in Japan.
Yeah.
But his concern is not coming from a place of concern, like a genuine place of concern. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So on the one hand, when I hear him saying this stuff from her, and I'm like, yes, it's going to be hard, and they're going to treat you like shit, and this, you know. But on the other hand, it's like, this is your best option, and definitely don't stay behind to be his what, right? Like, what was he offering her?
Like permanent side piece-ness, right?
So he was like
a gilded cage.
Yes, yeah, right. He was offering like a house for her and her mom and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, like, would you believe it?
No. And also, like, he is a Korean man, correct?
Yes.
I personally feel like my thought would be, in this situation, they can take shit away from you, too.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean? Like, what happens if you run afoul of them? Or, do you know, like...
Yeah, or they decide that, like, he is, you know, like, what's the word? Proximity, white proximity or whatever?
Yes, exactly.
He has proximity to whiteness, and so he's real, like...
Exactly.
But then proximity to the ruling, like, obviously the country that's winning.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean he's a winner.
Exactly. And he's just, I don't know, he just seems to have this kind of personal, like, self-hate.
Of course.
You know, for things that are Korean in some ways. So I was just like, yeah, fuck him. And then when he told her, I won't remember your name, lies.
I know.
Lies.
Although it got a little bit hot when he was like, if you say that you will forget about me. And I was just like,
Now, but let me ask you, because, oh, sorry, I hit the mic. I wondered, like, she does, I mean, of course, she's not stupid, but she does feel for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was on the prowl, he was very cool to her, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And he was, like, kind of funny and charming, obviously educated.
Yeah.
Like, he was basically offering to, like, teach her how to read and shit. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely see how it works. And I definitely understand how she wasn't completely, like, vomiting in his face in this scene. But, yeah, this was a lot. And I'm so curious. I know because you read the book, there's certain things you can't tell me. But I'm so convinced that we've not seen the last of him or his family. Like, oh, God.
I mean, yeah, surely, like, yeah.
I feel like my thing is, I feel like that person that they were showing, like, on the TV, and that he's also a client of Shifley's that Solomon saw. Like, I don't know. I feel like they're focusing on that, and I'm just wondering what happened to Hansu's family. Like, we're following Sunja's line and so far, but I feel like there has to be more to that. Okay, so she ends up saying goodbye to her family and like her mom and the women, the other two girls who work at that boarding house, and the tenants there. And when she is waiting with her mom for Isak to get their papers ready to get on the boat, it was so funny. She tries to have the talk with her.
Yeah.
She was
that
like,
before or after like that the money talk?
This is all, I think the money talk was at the end.
Okay.
So it's all in the same conversation, but I think the first thing was hold on, let me look at my notes. She says, when she talks about how she talks about the difference in her and her father and how they raised her and saw her future, and when she tells her, your father wanted you to fly. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Like, is it sad that I missed that man? Like, I'm so sad they killed that character.
Yeah.
He was such a good dad. He's such a good character. And then they have the talk where she's like, you may not feel like it, but he's a man and he's going to have needs and you're going to have to satisfy those needs.
Yeah.
And when she starts like blushing and she's like, oh, it's a wonder you ever got pregnant. How'd you?
Yes.
When she said that, I was like, oh man, Mom.
It's like the double-handed insult.
Right? She's like, how the hell did you end up pregnant? Anyway, but then, when she tries to give her, what was it, a ring?
Yeah, I think it was a set of wedding rings. Yeah.
That's right. That her grandmother, her paternal grandmother, gave to her mom when she married her father. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I kept them and I want you to have them. And basically it was that thing. I feel like, isn't it crazy how like I feel like no matter the time period, women get this kind of talk.
Yes, the fuck you fund. Yes. Like, even like, this is so funny. I mean, I am totally going to say it in a podcast, but like, I was doing freelance work for a friend and last year, and towards the end of last year, and it would like bleed over into the beginning of this year, and it was going to be paid in 2 payments. And so she was like, well, I'll let you decide, like, you know, what chunk you want to take now and then later or whatever. And then she was like, but keep in mind for your taxes. And then she goes, and also, like, if you have like your own bank account that you just want to put that in, like, like, you know, the Donnie don't know about. I was just like, and I was like, here it is, 2022, and women are still like, still, you know, and some may say that you have to think that way. I certainly don't know if you have to. I definitely think it can't hurt. Why not? To be prepared. It constantly shocks me, like, how many women don't have their own bank accounts still. Like, they give them up after marriage. Like, no.
Yes. And I just remember my mom, the same thing with me. Like, no, you must have your own.
Yeah.
You should have your own. And that's basically what she tells her. And then she won't accept the rings because she has the watch that Hansu gave her. She's, I'll just sell this shit.
And then her mom being like, oh, what an asshole.
Right?
She thought,
this is all he can do. This is what...
Yeah. This is child support. Yeah.
And I knew, like, that's what I was like, yeah, she still don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that there aren't, like, rumors.
Yeah. I mean, with somebody like him where, like, he had, like, a lot of girls have crushes on him.
Yeah.
But especially that rich girl.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm surprised, too.
I'm surprised it just hasn't been rumors about, like, somebody noticing when he was, like, taking time away or having her summoned to his office, that type of stuff. Like, but... So, and Sunja was really kind of holding it together until it came time to say goodbye to her mother.
Yeah.
And that's, I thought, what I thought was beautiful about this was not the cry. This was like a child crying.
Yes.
She's a married woman. She's pregnant. But this was like how a child cries when, you know, they have to go into the doctor's office or... You know, or when, you know, remember those days when you're first taking your kid to preschool?
Yeah.
And they won't leave you at the door. Like, that's what I heard in that crying. That was a child crying for their mother. And that gutted me.
Yes.
And she had
really
to.
Well done. It was really well done.
It was. And that's why I thought, too, that the young lady playing teenage Sunja she did great work in this scene. This, and when she was telling the girls, like, she told the one girl to watch after her mother. Like, she just took on the way she delivered those lines. It felt very like there was like a maturity there, you know. But then the very next scene, you see her doing this, you know. It was like, oh no, she's still just a teenage girl, you know.
Yeah.
And then her and her mom,
maybe her last chance to be just a girl. Right?
Yes, that's so true. Because she's going off to be someone's wife and mother now.
Like a preacher's wife.
Yeah, oh my God, right. So, her mom and Hansu watch the ship go. He looks pissed. And her mom is basically devastated. And notice, like, he walks away, kind of, like, they're the last two. And then he walks and she's there. And then they start showing us the stuff that's going on the ship and stuff. And at one point, it cuts back. Like, they show the mother leaving. And I was like, did she watch that ship till she couldn't see it no more?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It felt like she stood there for quite a long time. Which I get.
Yeah.
I used to, I can't believe I'm about to tell this on a podcast, but I used to, I lived with my mom. So I grew up with both my parents, like, in my life, but I lived with my mom, and I would live with my dad on, like, Christmas vacation, summer, stuff like that. And I used to remember, like, when he would drop me off at home. He lived in Queens and I lived in Brooklyn with my mom, and he would drop me off and, like, leave. And, like, I remember, like, sitting in the window and, like, watching until I couldn't see the headlights anymore.
Yes.
Or the rear view lights of his car. Like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so the singer that she meets on the way, like, getting onto the ship, is, we discussed this, she's a Korean singer, and the people were whispering about her, and they said that she was pretty famous. I'm guessing she's, you know, famous Korean singer, and she was being, it seemed, made to go to Japan to perform. And more than that, that guy was, like, touching on her, wasn't he?
Oh, in the dinner?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember if I was, like, misremembering.
Yeah, that grandpa.
Yes. Ugh. And so she's eating dinner, and I didn't even catch like, they show her, like, a close-up of her putting the steak knife down. I didn't even think, like, that meant anything until they showed the knife again when she was on stage, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know where that was going. I really didn't. So, meanwhile, let's go to present day for a second. Harmony, she shows up to sign the papers.
Oh, the way she played the room and how, like, disgusted she was. It was so good.
This woman, I'm telling you, I'm such a fan of this woman. I think she's just delightful. I think she's beautiful. It's something about her eyes. I just think she's just gorgeous. And in this scene, when there was, like, one part where her son, I know there was a part where I think it was her daughter who said something like, "Mommy, all these important people probably have things to do."
Yeah, she's just like, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
Yes. The look she cut across that.
Yeah. That
I
daughter
was like,
lost
y'all
her tongue. Like, somehow it just disappeared. Yeah.
I love that. Just the look she cut, both her son and her daughter, at 2 separate times when they started opening their mouths. But yeah, they sit her down. It's all this pomp and circumstance, right? They're being very, very nice to her, right? Because they want her to sign these papers. And she's just taking her time. Because all these other scenes that we've been talking about has led up to this. She sits at this table. She's not yet signing it, right? When she gave her son the dirty look is when he had the documents. And he was like, just sign it. She's like, you haven't even read it. Like, how do you know it says the same thing that they said? You know what I mean? Like, she looked at him like, you dummy.
Yeah. And she can't even be like, who raised you?
Right.
She's like, I fucking raised you. Great.
You should know better than this. But, but I also feel like, too, that they probably don't, and this is just me speculating, they probably don't have the same connection to this house, obviously. It means something different to her. And they probably are just, like, waiting to be rich, too.
And they don't speak Korean.
Oh, my God, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, they're like every Korean immigrant's worst nightmare kids, right? Like that's what every Korean American,
immigrant, right?
American and anybody in the diaspora, like they're terrified that their kids are going to grow up to be like that.
And I get it. I understand that. I understand that. I absolutely understand that. And you felt that I didn't get that they didn't, and I didn't get to I felt like there was. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I felt like there was some conversation around that table that was in Japanese that even the white guy didn't understand. I felt like there was some conversation that went around at one point and he asked a question and I was like, oh, he doesn't understand that. But then they went straight to Korean. And when they went to Korean, I'm going to assume then that the only people in that room who understand Korean is the grandmother and Solomon.
Yes.
They were scared as shit. The longer she took, that was a delicious scene. And I didn't know, right? Because I haven't read the book, so I didn't know. I was like, is she not going to sign these papers? And then when she starts telling the story about what it was like for her father, and we see this juxtaposed with Sunja and Isak getting on the boat, and him realizing this is like the poor people in the Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't like y'all got a cabin.
No, there was like a goat or something.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And she gets immediately sick,
Yeah. That's where you feel the most.
Yeah, and she's pregnant and all, so she's sick and sweating and dizzy and stuff. And he goes to get her some water. Isak leaves Sunja there to get some water. Meanwhile, and again, this is when I got it. The singer gets up to sing before all of these fancy, rich Japanese folks. Mm-hmm. And she's singing a song and then she goes into this Korean song, right? Yeah. She's singing in Japanese at first. And then when she starts singing Korean, below deck on the boat, they hear it. And they're like, that's our music.
Yeah, and they heard the drumming, right? Because that was the Japanese people being like, the fuck, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And I was like, I'm not going to lie, I started getting choked up. Because this is like that fisherman from, was it the first episode?
Yeah.
Or, when he started singing.
Yep.
This singing as a act of rebellion. And again, this is something that, this has been portrayed in slave narratives, mm-hmm. And particularly cattle slavery here in the Americas. The idea of singing as an act of rebellion and them hearing her doing the singing and they're singing along and clapping along below deck. Sunja's just like, can somebody give me some goddamn water? Because she don't know what's going on.
I know, she's just like, vive la revolution, but also holy shit, like she's just throwing up.
Yeah, she's like, how long till Japan? Because this is terrible.
Are we there yet?
Lord Jesus. And they go to they're like, get her off that stage. They were going to drag her off the stage, but the singer brought that knife, the steak knife, up on the stage and presumably kills herself.
Yes.
And again, this is like the way, the things we do to people. This is what colonialism looks like. Again, I feel like that word is not, it's almost too nice of a word.
It is. It's a longer, slower genocide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I learned when in this Black Studies class that I took for Latin America, Afro-Latino culture and history, and the idea, you know, genocide is not just like physical, the murdering of people.
Yeah.
You know, there's all kinds of genocide, cultural genocide. And this is absolutely was the purpose of this. And to that point, in present day, she's saying this at this table before she signs these papers. She's saying, you know, first my father went over, and we see this, right? Like we see the men going over, told they're going to work in, where they from? They're going to work in mines, I think she said. They were going to work, and eventually they can bring their family. Like they were told these things. And she talks about how when they did get there, they called them roaches.
Yes.
And said that they were loud. And she said, and they were right, but that was because we had 5 and 6 families crammed into one apartment to afford the rent.
Yep.
I was like, she ain't signing them fucking papers. When she told that story, I was like, I would have told them to kiss my entire black ass. And I know I said last time that I am poor and broke and I will do a lot for money. But I'm going to be honest with you. If I was sitting in a room full of white folks, and that's like the comparable thing that I can come up with here. But you know what I mean? Like this type of...
I think it's framed on purpose, right? Like, every, you know, marginalized people can relate to this.
Yeah.
Like you manage to squeeze and get your own piece. Like they just...
And it's like... Also, and it's also like, how dare they decide that what she currently has, what is hers, isn't worth, like they're like, look at what we're giving you for that. Just take it and be grateful. That type of thing. But that's where she lives.
Yeah.
So, and I might say, I might be so bold, like that's where she lived against her will, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't her original plan in life.
And I think
to move to Japan. You know?
It kind of like is like, what is it, the planting and payoff, right? When she said in, I think episode 2 or 3, when Sunja like goes to, you know, when Solomon brings his grandma to talk to her, and how she's just like, they were talking about going back, and it was very obvious that like she didn't go back because her kids were just gone. They were too far gone.
Yeah.
They were too Japanese.
Yeah.
To like know like or want to go back to Korea, and so she stayed for them. Oh man,
it's tough.
And how she was just like, you know, we should just do things for ourselves after a while. Like at a certain point, like, you know, why not do something for ourselves? Which to me sounded a little bit weird. Like that sounded American to me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I can see that.
But it makes sense now, right? Like her kids, you know, wanted the $1 billion.
Right.
Right. Who wouldn't?
Right.
But like, she basically like fucked over her kids.
Yeah.
Monetarily.
Yeah.
But like, I don't blame her.
No, I was gonna say some things like and I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have been the right thing to do. You know, maybe that's a selfishness and the pride and all that, you know, maybe I'm fucked up for denying my kids that, right? But
also, like, when she dies, I'm sure this came into the calculus too. Like, she's like, you know, I'm not gonna be here another 50 years or anything. Right. So they could do whatever the fuck they want.
Right. But that's true. You
now,
sell it to them then, right? Now.
Sell it to them then. Maybe you won't get $1 billion. Maybe you will. I don't know.
Right.
But not now, and not from me.
Yeah. And I get, that's what I was going to say. I feel like, but you know what, Julie, I am a cut my nose off to spite my face type of person. I will cut this fucking nose off in a second. You hear me? I can't be blackmailed. I tell all the time, you think you gonna tell my shit to make me look, I will tell my own shit. You wanna know why? Because I ain't scared of no fucking body.
Yeah.
So I get it. I would have sat there, my petty ass, remembering that story, calling me and my daddy cockroaches. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd have been like, fuck you and these papers.
Yeah, and the one thing that was a little bit like, I don't know, too neat and tidy maybe for the sake of a story was like when she was just like, would you tell your grandma to sign?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Solomon as a character probably would have been like, yeah, hell yeah.
I was just thinking, I was like, when she asked him that, I was like, you're talking to Solomon? I don't know.
But like, for the overall point, he's like,
yes.
Yeah, and like, by the way, he's just gonna throw his job away.
Yes.
Apparently.
Yes. And then he goes and dances in the rain.
To my favorite Cure song of all time.
Wait, what was the song? I don't remember it.
It's called In Between Days.
In Between Days. I don't think I know that one. I'm gonna look it up when we're done. Yeah. Okay.
It's it's like really like classic Cure where like it sounds super cheerful. But like the lyrics are really like sad.
Yes.
Very British, very,
Do you want to know what my favorite The Cure song is? Wait, I have several. I don't know. Wait, hold on. It might be Just Like Heaven. That's The Cure. Right?
Just Like Heaven is, it's such a good song.
Show me how you do that trick. The one that makes me scream, she said. The one that makes me laugh. Okay, sorry. I love that
There
song.
were arms around my neck. Yeah.
So I used to, there were these diners in New York that had the little jukebox at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to the movies a lot by myself. And when I was living in Brooklyn, I would get on the train, get the newspaper. Back in the day, that's how we looked up what was showing. I would get the newspaper, pick a movie, pick a theater in Manhattan, get the cross streets, pull up my subway map, figure out what trains I need to take to get there, get on the train by myself, go in the city, buy my ticket, and then go find like a restaurant nearby to eat before the show. And I would love little diners like that have the little jukebox at the table. And one of my favorite ones had that song on there, and I would sit there eating things like grilled cheese and coffee and French fries before my movie and like play that song 4 or 5 times in a row because I just loved it.
Aww.
Nice little memory there. So soon, Tom is, I think that's his name. Tom, the white guy?
White guy, yeah.
Okay, Tom, we're just gonna call him Tom. He's like, you fucked me, Solomon. And wait, did you hear the shit those Japanese men were talking when she didn't sign them papers?
Yeah.
Their whole tone changed. The way they started talking, the way they addressed her when she didn't sign them papers was totally different. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Suddenly, she was one of those people.
And then they lumped Solomon in there, like that whole racist thing where like one person from a race does one thing and now it just like everybody in that race does the same thing.
Which is why it never fucking pays, no matter who it's from. If it's a Korean person to a Japanese person, if it's a black person to a white person, it does not. That's why it never fucking pays to play their games.
It never does, because they will just drop
in a
you.
second, exactly.
Yes.
So and it's never worth it. So don't play their games. That proximity to whiteness shit. Trust me. Sunja. Now listen. Her in this cab in Busan. Listen, when she told him to stop the car, her poor son is like getting the bags out the trunk. She already on the beach. I love her. She ain't a shit.
Her poor son probably is like, oh my God, is she killing herself? Like,
right?
But also I have to pay this guy.
Right. He was like, 2 days ago, I was just at work, and now I'm in Korea because she told me we have to go, and now she's on the beach, and I'm getting all this, like, what the fuck, Mom? Like, what is happening? And presumably, this is her son with Hansu, right? This is the child she was pregnant with when she left? Or do we know?
Presumably, yes.
Yeah. And is it just the one? Does she... I don't feel like we've...
I don't think they've mentioned any other children, no.
Right. This makes me sad. Where's Isak? I'm so sorry. I don't...
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I want to know what happened to him. Like, we already know what happens to his sister, right? Kyung-hee, or his sister-in-law.
Right.
And
so she survived for a very long time.
For a long time, right. And so I'm assuming, like, in the next episode, that's when we're going to finally meet her.
I'm assuming so, too, yeah. But what was beautiful, too, is that it was the same rain, most likely, right?
Yes!
With Solomon and his grandmother.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
Mm-hmm. And they were both having this moment. I know.
Now, I know some people are going to be like, that's so corny and it's so TV and that's the odds of that, whatever. I don't give a shit. I need one or both of those girls from the boarding house to still be alive. I don't give a shit. I needs that kind of reunion. I know her mother's dead, but
yeah,
I need something. Y'all got to give me something.
Yeah, I wonder.
I
will say this though, like they've diverged from the book in pretty like noteworthy ways already. So I actually have no idea what's going to happen.
Oh, okay. Well, I do want to mention that in the episode when she went to the woman's house with Solomon and she was talking about rice and she started crying because she said it reminds her of her mother on her wedding day. Like we get to see that.
I know.
I was like, oh, this is what she meant. So when her mom went to the merchant and was asking for the rice because she got married, I was like, oh, this is what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And then we get to see it, and I was like, oh, yeah, because that was the last time she had that rice from home.
Isn't that crazy? Because, yeah, she never went back.
Mm-hmm. So that was it. That was the episode. I'm so looking forward to episode 5. Like I said, I'm curious to see what kind of life Sunja has in the beginning when she first gets to Japan. I feel like I know a little, like, what to expect a bit, she talked about how hard it was and, how important Kyung-hee was to her in those early days. So I'm expecting it to be hard. Like I said, I felt like Hansu was telling a bit of truth and what it was going to be like for her, that it wasn't going to be easy. So I'm expecting hard stuff, but I'm curious to see, like, how her relationship with Isaac changes. If it changes, like what happens there, like, because again, it doesn't seem like he comes up very much in present day, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't like your grandfather. Like, I haven't heard him mentioned yet.
Like, was it the prior episode when Kyung-hee's ashes and they had the pastor come and she was all like, making the house all pretty for the pastor.
Yeah.
And the pastor could do no wrong. And then she said, and Solomon calls her out on that, right? And then she's like, oh, he just reminds me of an old friend of mine.
Oh.
Do you remember that? And so that confuses me. That might be a departure from the book. Yeah.
You got me saying with my mouth open, like, what?
Do you remember? And like, maybe, there's another pastor.
Yeah.
But like.
Because, like, also, remember, we know she confided in Kyung-hee. Obviously, they were close, right? Because she was taking care of this woman before she died, right? Like, they remained close. But, like, one of the things Kyung-hee had said to her, right, was, like, do you ever regret, like, the choice you made? And then it goes back to the past, and then that's when it introduced the whole, he's married. Because I was like, what choice? Who does she have to choose between? So in retrospect, I thought she was saying, like, choosing between Isak and Hansu.
Right.
And so I thought, clearly she chooses Isak, right? Because here she is. But I don't know. Like, maybe she was talking about something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so I'm excited to watch the next episode, and I will be available to hook up with you to talk about it whenever you want. You just let me know. But for you guys listening at home, if you are listening for free, like if you are not listening to this on Patreon in the sneak peek phase. If you're listening to this like on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify, we have a lot of great free content coming up. We're also covering Halo, which is the live action television series based off the video game, streaming over on Paramount Plus TV. We're covering the DMZ, which is a 4-episode mini-series starring Benjamin Bratt and Rosario Dawson on HBO Max. What else is free? Extracurricular is going up for free. It was premium first, but we just finished that, and I'm going to put the whole season coverage up for free on Libsyn at the end of the week. And I feel like there's one other thing that I'm forgetting. There's some good stuff coming up. We're doing We Own This City next month. I believe that's free. It's by David Simon. He did The Wire, and it's another kind of indictment of the police department in Baltimore, I think, series. This one's only 4 episodes. It stars John Bernthal. It's also on HBO Max. I think that's it for free. And then over on Premium, we just finished Attack on Titan and Super Crooks, and we started 2 new anime to replace them. We're covering Tiger and Bunny and Spy Family. Both so far really, really good. Kaylee's over there beaming because Tiger and Bunny was her suggestion. We're also covering Moon Knight, the Marvel Plus TV series on Disney Plus. We are covering, oh my God, what else? We're starting the K-drama My Name, which is on Netflix. And I'm drawing a blank. What else is... Oh, Obi-Wan. That starts in a few weeks over on Disney Plus, right? Yes. The next live-action Star Wars TV series, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to be covering that. So, a lot of great stuff coming up. If you're not already a premium subscriber, head over to patreon.com/podcastfandom and sign up. We have 2 tiers to choose from. Everybody else, we will see you next week to talk about Chapter 5 of Pachinko.